A lot of people have been playing TDS for a while now, so surely they already know a lot about TDS and some bugs. I have been gathering some interesting facts about TDS lately, some you may already know, and some that are completely unbelievable. And thank God I have video proof for it. Anyways, here are 15 fun facts about TDS. Let's see how many of these facts you already know. Let's start with the first one. Defense formula. Defense is an attribute that's always shown in percentage reduces the damage of your towers, so it's fair to assume that these attributes will reduce your tower's damage based on percent, but what you don't know is that it doesn't completely, does that, by percentage, but rather it's a value for the defense formula. You might be wondering why enemies with 100% defense does not completely nullify your tower's damage or even come close to 100%, it only reduces it by 50%. Why is that? Well, it's cause how the formula works. It works like this. First, it converts the percent value into decimal. For example, if the value is 50%, then the input will be 0.5. Add it with 1, then you get 1.5. Then divide it by 1050, which is max ranger's damage. This doesn't include explosive damage. This is just an example. Then you get 700 damage. So ranger will only deal 700 damage to an enemy. That's how defense reduces damage. It looks like max ranger only lost 33% of its main damage and not 50%. Awakened Fallen King is the Fallen King. In Hidden Wave, you face the overwhelming super buffed hordes of Fallen mode and the final boss named Awakened Fallen King. This wave requires several conditions to be activated in order to face the Fallen's final push. What's interesting about this is that Awakened Fallen King is still the Fallen King entity. Despite seeing Fallen King die at 0 HP, thinking this is just a unique death animation, it makes sense since most of your games with Fallen King, he typically just normally dies. But no, this isn't technically a death animation, but more like a very long transition into its next, hidden phase. Also, every death animation always ends with a particle of smoke. There's more proof that they're the same enemy, but with a different name. Or you could check in the wiki. This boss is technically incredibly unique, but the execution is underwhelming. You can activate Hidden Wave on any wave. In almost everyone's game, you always activate Hidden Wave after wave 40, the final wave of Fallen mode. But, Hidden Wave is not linked to the final wave, but rather, again, to Fallen King, the boss that appears on wave 40. As long as you meet the requirements of putting the code in the chat, 1 base HP, and kill Fallen King under 60 seconds, you will be able to activate Hidden Wave on any wave, as long as there's Fallen King in it. The only issue is that Fallen King only appears on wave 40. Maybe when the Hidden Wave option on sandbox mode works you can experience Hidden Wave on wave 1. This does mean for another fun fact to happen, which is, you can freely use consumables to activate Hidden Wave. I mean, you can already use consumables to help you activate Hidden Wave, but not when you're on wave 40 fighting Fallen King. Since you're only blacklisted to use consumables on wave 40, if Fallen King somehow spawned earlier than that, you can freely use consumables without any consequence to kill Fallen King faster to activate Hidden Wave. You can drop a nuke if you want. These can only happen if an admin spawned Fallen King before wave 40, though. It would be funny if you could enter the Hidden Wave code on hardcore once it's reworked. That's assuming whether Fallen King still exists by then and is replaced with the new one. Boosting FPS in the lobby. Yes, this actually works. Well, before, you can boost your FPS in the lobby by opening 3 tabs in the lobby. Lobby only, by the way. I made a video about this before. In the big 2025 it doesn't work anymore because TDS optimized the lobby way more compared to before. Like before, I usually get 100 FPS, then with the trick it's around 220 on a private lobby. But now it's always hitting 240 FPS, in public lobbies. The trick for that was to open the items tab and go to skins, then open the store and go to the skins section, and lastly open up your quests tab. Again, this doesn't work anymore in the modern day, but it was a cool fact at that time. 100% defense melting. Remember defense? You can melt him and reduce the enemy's defense by certain towers, usually the ones with an element like fire, ice, energy, and poison. DJ's red track ability can also significantly reduce defense too. Each element has their own defense melting cap. Fire and poison all have a maximum of 50% each, 33% on ice towers, 25% on DJ Boot, 20% for energy towers or just electroshocker. If you bring a tower, let's say Jester and Toxic Gunner to melt defense, they can only melt a maximum of 50% together because they share the same element. The same goes for when you only use Freezer or Cryomancer, but if you combine different towers that can melt defense with a different element, that's when you can stack defense melting, which can go up to 100%, effectively removing the attribute from the enemy. Defense melting immunity. All bosses, the ones that have a boss bar, are supposed to be completely immune to defense melting, but because TDS has spaghetti code, some towers can still melt boss defense. The only elements that can't melt boss defense are poison, DJ, and energy towers. I hope it stays this way since it sounds dumb to completely make the boss immune to defense, when the devs could just flat out remove defense and add more HP. You could still reduce the boss defense with fire and freeze towers by the way. Defense bypass. You now know how to completely melt enemy defense now, which will usually take around 2 or 3 towers to do so. Now scrap that idea entirely since some towers can completely bypass enemy defense. Basically what I'd like to call it, true damage. Explosive towers and collision towers, like Trapper and Mortar can bypass the defense of an enemy, so you don't need to worry about enemies with high defense tanking a lot of hits when you have those towers. Targeting works on aggro. This is probably obvious, but not completely. Changing your tower targeting still works against the aggro attribute, it's just that it only targets an enemy with the aggro attribute, but you can choose which specific aggro enemy, like the enemy at the last of the horde, or the strongest. Old event enemy logbooks. After the Frost Invasion 2024 update, TDS released logbook system, which logs almost every enemy in the game. From your normal survival enemies to event enemies, which may include old event enemies, but for legacy enemies, enemies made before 2023, some of them don't have their logbook despite still existing in the game. The logbook system is inconsistent for legacy enemies. The interesting fact about this system is that if you have the logbook of an event enemy, you can spawn them in sandbox. So if you somehow got like Jack O'Bot's logbook from Lunar Overture, in theory, you can spawn that enemy in sandbox. Just like Executioner that was reused in Pizza Party. It would be crazy if we somehow got Drakabloxer's logbook and spawned it in sandbox. TDS OST IDs. After the Roblox audio update back in 2022 it killed the custom DJ music game pass, because you can't use any music IDs anymore besides Roblox's ID and TDS music IDs. So any music IDs TDS uploads will work on the DJ booth. I've compiled a lot of those IDs in a document over a couple of years now, link in the description. Yeah! Unused sound assets. The TDS music ID doc also has some unused dialogue and music. There's Umbra's unused dialogue. Hero, dance! Narrators. And an Arsenal announcer dialogue.
Oh yeah!
Who knows what these unused assets were used for? Well, this one Umbra dialogue appeared in the game, just not the audio of it.
Were you waiting for me? How sweet of you. In that case, I will be sure to serve you well.
It's probably for the best that this audio didn't play during that era. Void Reaver heals. I might sound insane, but it's possible and it actually happened. Yeah. A very few or handful of OG in the channel might remember that one of my community post, but I have video proof of it. Void Reaver can only heal you when it reaches rage mode, and your base reaches 0 HP at the same time the sword hits your base. 0% economy. Thank God that they changed the ecosystem now, though this still discourages me a lot to defend early while the rest of my team farms. But back to the previous system where you can get more cash from not defending, dealing absolute 0% damage, instead helping your teammates defend. There's one mechanic that could get you to earn 1 cash, no matter how much damage you dealt. For every additional player that exists in the game, the total cash you get from an enemy is reduced by 25%. So on solo it's 100%, duo 75%, trio 50%, and quad 25%. If we add another player in a quad game, the game will reduce the cash cap by another 25%. So you get 0%. You're cooked when some admin is gonna join your quad game like this one. Buff stays after losing range from supports. When DJ gets buffed by Ranger, DJ can buff more towers in its range. But after that temporary range buff from Ranger disappears, which brings DJ's range down to normal. You might originally think the tower loses the buff. No, it doesn't, the buff stays. Their buff doesn't change when you change DJ's track if it's not in range. This fact doesn't work on Commander unfortunately. The tower loses the buff after Commander loses its temporary range buff, while for Mercenary base, you need to upgrade the tower for the buff to update to all towers in range, while it has the range buffs. So, those are 15 fun facts in the game for now. I'm sure there are more interesting facts, bugs, and perhaps some secrets TDS is hiding. Anyways, how many of these did you know? Drop them down in the comments below. You can also drop some more facts that you know off while you're at it. Anyways, like if you like the video, and dislike if you dislike it, and thanks for watching.